G'day everyone, this is my review of Napalm Brothers from Gravestone Press. From what I can tell, a bloke called Combat Scale did all the work on the book: art, writing, colours and letters. This way of working gives the creator total control of the book and a unique ability to actuate his personal vision. This has advantages and disadvantages. Savage Dragon. But for the Napalm Brothers, it definitely works. This book is a love letter to the psychedelic underground comics of the 70s, and this book showcases the best of that era with the tools of today. If you watched any of my other comic review videos, you know how heavily I weigh the value of a good cover. The cover for Napalm Brothers does everything a cover is supposed to. Every aspect, from the logo to the bikini-clad queen toting a 44, evokes the conceits of the era and causes strains of Fortunate Son to rise in your mind. The palm trees in the logo, the militaristic stamp font on the word Napalm, the Starsky and Hutch-esque font on Brothers. This logo is designed to drop your mind smack bang in the 70s, post-NAM era. Even the colouring has that early proto-airbrush look you see on graffiti and custom car paint jobs. This cover does the one job all covers have. It makes you want to take this book down off the shelf and flip through it. From that point on, it's the interior of the book's job to sell itself, but that first contact, that desire to know more, rests squarely on the shoulders of the cover. That can involve engaging blurbs or big-name creators on the front credits or cool-as-hell artwork, so long as it makes you pause and want to know more. The Napalm Brothers was a crowd-funded comic on the Indiegogo platform, and it came with a second book, Charlie and the Wire, that I hope to find time to review later on. It's a shorter black and white book that acts as a kind of origin story for some of the characters in the Napalm Brothers, showing how they met in Vietnam. The opening page of Napalm Brothers looks like a screen-printed political poster or an album cover. The limited colour palette and heavy black lines are reminiscent of lino-cut art. The whole book has a very strong inking style with bold, strong outlines that evoke Robert Crumb. Coop is dreaming or flashing back to his time in Nam when he was caught in the blast of an RPG. He wakes up in his bed back in America and we see he's missing his leg. He heads to a bar to meet Parko, his fellow soldier, and they reflect on how likely it is that their comrade, Dwayne, should be dead. The vibe I was getting was that Dwayne might have killed himself, and while Parko believes that, Coop is outraged. A couple of hippies decide to hassle the boys and it doesn't go so well for them, predictably. Coop and Parko steal the hippies' van to drive to Dwayne's funeral. There they meet Dwayne's sister Angel. She shares Coop's view that Dwayne's death is suspicious and mentions he was talking to a reporter right before he died. The priest begins the service and then... The Napalm Brothers is cut like a movie. The scene transitions are crisp and you can almost see them playing out on the page in front of you. This cut here from the priest reading from the Bible to getting a bullet in the head is so sharp, so shocking, it acts as a break into a slow pan down into the firefight. The panels of a Vietnamese man watching the Americans leave for the last time into an Asian orange sunset, and the portrait of Dwayne in his marine dress are like flashing scenes seared through a raging gun battle set against the lurid purples and reds. Angel and the boys manage to get away in the van and are pursued by a Latino gang who are uncharacteristically well armed. Coop manages to outmaneuver some grenades and starts to turn the tide when a huge gorilla bursts from the back of the van and crushes the gang leader's car. The trio decide to get some payback and take the fight to the gang. Angel notes they'll need some bigger guns and they visit Zeke, another veteran friend. He supplies them with some heavy ordnance and Angel fills the boys in on the rest of the story. Dwayne's death is indeed suspicious. It involves his boss, a man named Krieger. The boys decide Krieger can wait as they stalk the rival gang. We see them preparing to breach the gang's hideout, their faces hidden by gas masks, and we come full circle as the soldiers prepare to bring home the violence from the war that created them. While the PDF has white borders, I imagine the print version of the book has black ink to the edges, which would have enhanced the intense, colourful spread. Be it the yellow haze of a veteran waking from a booze-fueled nightmare, the purple dim of a seedy bar, or the clear blue sky of a perfect day for a funeral, this sort of pop art colour scheme continues throughout the book. During the firefight, the enemy is reduced to a red field, while Angel in her green dress has pride of place fighting back. So many books these days have a muted, washed-out palette, chasing the overrated title of gritty or realistic. Combat Scale goes the other way, a complete 180, pushing hard into the lurid, acid-sharp, confronting hyper-surrealism that perfectly suits his bold gonzo underground comic art style. Every aspect of the book has been tailored to fit Combat Scale's vision. He uses repetitive motifs and symbolism, such as the halo and the gas mask, to perhaps evoke facelessness and piety, or moral authority invoked by God. Could it be the gas masks hide their identity while they commit heinous acts, or even while dying, so as to erase the identity and human costs of war? Are the halos how they see themselves, granted authority to do whatever they want to do? Even subconsciously, each of these elements is a choice. Combat Scale chose to include them, and so they have weight. Similarly, when Coop genuflects, his narration is poetry, perhaps deliberately. The short walk to the beach left me feeling alone. Sand and gravel and dirt, my souvenirs of pride. A harsh shore beaten by the tides of age, turning boulders into rocks and rocks into pebbles, small enough to fit in my pocket. Telling, not showing, is a trend I've noticed in many crowdfunding books, and I usually attribute it to a lack of experience or a lack of space. In Combat Scale's case, I believe it was the latter. For a lot of us dipping our toes into the crowdfunding game, we recognise that our first book might be our last. I've touched on this before. The scene from Walk the Line where the record label guy asked Johnny Cash what was the one song he'd sing if he only had one song left to sing. When so much is on the line, I think a lot of us worry about squandering our one chance to say what we want to say. We aim high and we're ambitious. Sometimes it leads to info dumps. Sometimes it leads to clunky dialogues. It's not something reserved for comics or even just crowdfunding comics. J. Scott Bell points out this kind of expositionary dialogue was par for the course on old episodes of Perry Mason. There's only really one strong example of this kind of writing in the book, but it comes early. It comes as our first opportunity to see one of the title characters interacting with the other, and it's a bit jarring. Fortunately, the rest of the book is free from this kind of thing, but it is something I would hope a beta reader or an editor would point out and give the author a chance to rework and perfect. The speech balloons of the Latino gang use a very unusual font that is hard to read, especially white on black. While this might interfere with the readability and accessibility of the scenes, I also think it has a purpose, much like the extended scenes of Portuguese dialogue in Max Payne 3. Max doesn't speak Portuguese, and presumably neither does the majority of players. By withholding translation, we are as much in the dark as Max is. We share his feeling of being alone, isolated, a man without a country. He feels like he doesn't belong, and we share that feeling. This alien-looking font, along with the ashen skin tone of the Latino gang, alienates them to us. They look different, they speak different, they're hard to understand, and maybe the goal was to dehumanize them so as to enamor us with the coming violence. This book is both poetry and crude four-colour escapism, philosophy and titillation. Its roots are firmly set in the underground comics and blaxploitation movies of the 70s, but it has a modern mind for storytelling and incorporates current technologies to colourfully wrap the package for our consumption. It's political in as much as wars themselves are, but the book doesn't say one way or the other if the war in question was good or bad. Coop seems to think it wasn't the best idea, but like he says, he isn't complaining. Paco seems more at peace with what happened, but regrets the welcome home. Pay attention, Marvel, this is how you do politics in comics. Have a range of characters representing their own point of view and never push your own agenda at the expense of story. Combat Scale gives us motivated characters that aren't black and white, even though they probably think they are. I'm not sure what this genre is called. It's not a straight-up action movie. It's not quite blaxploitation, though it definitely lives next door, at least on the same street as that genre. Is there a name for vet returns from a war to find his world turned upside down, then uses his military skills to violently right things as a genre? If not, there should be. If I had to sum up the feeling I got from the book in one word, it'd be promise. There is a lot of promise here. Combat Scale promises us a lot. He promises us over-the-top violence. He promises us more conceits of the 70s, particularly post-NAM era. He promises retribution, revenge, betrayal, and strong female characters. He promises us a good time, if we come back for a second helping. My desire and drive to come back for a second issue is my final word in reviewing a crowdfunded book. Crowdfunded comics is still an awkward, gangly child working out its early steps. I paid $5 US for this issue, which equates to about $8 dues here in Dingoland. $8 is a lot for a physical book. It's a huge ask for a digital one. What sort of structure are we looking at here? Can Combat Scale do this every month, every 2 months, once a quarter? He's just a guy with a dream and a copy of Photoshop. He can't compete with the economies of scale the big two can command. How long will someone continue to follow and support this book, or indeed any crowdfunded book, when the pricing isn't too far off of a month of Netflix or some other streaming service? With the death knells of Diamond tolling, it's impossible for me to predict what future comic book distribution models will look like. I suppose all we can do is support the books that we both want to and are able to. If I am able, I will continue to support the Napalm Brothers and Combat Scale, because I want to. I'd like to thank you all for your time, especially if you made it this far. There's more content than ever out there these days, and if you chose to spend some of your valuable time here with me for a while, then I'm very grateful. Please hit the thumbs up button, comment below to leave your opinion and help the algorithm. Feel free to hit the subscribe button if you like this sort of content and want to see more. I'll have more comic book reviews, particularly crowd-funded comic reviews, as well as writing workshops and time-lapse art videos up soon.